All right, I got a great test question for you to determine if you know anything about parallel and perpendicular lines. Got three equations for you, written in different forms. You've got to determine if they're parallel or perpendicular lines. Could you do it? Let's find out. All right, the first good news is that line A is written in slope-intercept form. Beauty of that is that when it comes to parallel versus perpendicular, there's two things that you're trying to look for. Parallel means they're going to match. Perpendicular means they're going to be opposite reciprocals. If you need a quick refresher on opposite reciprocal, it'd be like 1/4. Since that's positive, I need an opposite, so my reciprocals has to be opposite. So positive and a negative, there's your opposites. And then the reciprocal is taking the fraction and flipping it. So that'd be 4/1, or just -4. So -4 is the opposite reciprocal of 1/4. Here's one more example. If the slope was -3/2, the opposite reciprocal would have to be positive, and then you would flip those two numbers to make it 2/3. Opposite reciprocals. Opposite reciprocal slopes make perpendicular lines. If they were the exact same slope, -3/2 and -3/2, those would be parallel lines. Okay, now that we understand that, let's break this down and work these problems out. Y equals 4x minus 2. Yes, it's in slope-intercept form. They gave me the slope. This makes my life easy. I can just say slope is 4. Put a box around it, save it for when we go to check these two. Now they get a little bit trickier. X plus 4y equals 3. This is written in standard form. Now, standard form doesn't necessarily give you the slope just right then and there. You can't just pull it out of it. You have to manipulate, change the equation a little bit. So we're going to say x plus 4y equals 3. And I want to rearrange these terms so I can get it into y equals mx plus b form. So I can just steal that number as the slope. So let's move this x term over to the other side. Minus x leaves me with 4y equals -x, which is really -1x. I encourage my students to put it in, especially those students that forget about it. And then I got to divide by the 4, cancels, divide by the 4, divide by the 4, and I'm left with y equals -1/4 x plus 3/4. That was from line B. So one thing I can tell you about line B now is that its slope is -1/4. Slope is -1/4. Circle it. Now we can compare the two. We'll get to that in just a second. Let's finish this last one down here. We'll rearrange that just like we did with problem B and see if we've got some parallel or perpendicular lines. -8y minus 2x equals 16. Here they just took the x and y and flipped them, still in standard form. -8y minus 2x equals 16. Again, our goal should be to put this in slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. Once I get there, I can just steal the m and say that's my slope. Let's get this 2x, this -2x needs to push to the other side, so we're going to inverse operate, cancels. Now I've got -8y equals 2x plus 16. Let's get rid of the -8 through inverse operation. Divide by -8, cancels, divide by -8, divide by -8. I'm left with y equals -2/8 x minus 2. -2/8 is our slope. That should definitely stand out to you as a fraction that can be simplified. How do I know it can be simplified? Both numbers are even. That means you can cut them both in half. What's half of 2? 1. What's half of 8? 4. -1/4 is the slope for this one here. So now that we look at everything we have and we think about what we talked about at the beginning, parallel lines will have a matching slope. So if that's a 4 and down here this slope is 4, they'd be parallel. Opposite reciprocals, meaning one's got to be positive, one's got to be negative, and then they got to be reciprocals, so a flip of the fraction, those would be perpendicular lines. Well, let's see what we got. -1/4, -1/4, and 4. Well, let's start with the easy answer. 2 -1/4, those match. Therefore, line B and C are parallel. Now, 4. Is 4 an opposite reciprocal of -1/4? Well, are they opposites? 4 is positive, Negative 1/4 is negative, so yeah, they are opposites. And what is 4 as a fraction? 4 as a fraction is 4 over 1. So if I were to flip that, I get 1/4. These are opposite reciprocals. So what we could say is line A is perpendicular to B and C. All right, hopefully this makes sense. Study hard and good luck on your upcoming test. Do not forget, when it comes to parallel and perpendicular, it's all about that slope.